We are all human. We are all fallible. We all make mistakes. But it is a measure of our integrity and our character as to how we deal with those mistakes. And the British people have overwhelmingly judged this Prime Minister to have dealt with his mistakes disastrously. Overwhelmingly, they believe him to be a liar, and they have lost trust and confidence in him. And that is a problem, not just for this government, that is a problem for the British political system. And I would caution some Conservative colleagues opposite to be less cavalier in trying to dismiss those public concerns. The narrative coming from the government seems to be that these breaches were just a consequence of living with the regulations. They were bound to happen, part of normal life. They were happening in all sorts of places. They paid the fine. Let's move on. Nothing to see here. Madam Deputy Speaker, that won't wash. First of all, the great majority, the overwhelming majority of people in this country did not breach the rules. They accepted the mandation that was put upon their behaviour, often at great cost and personal consequence. I have hundreds of emails from constituents. I wanted to read some out today as well, but there is not time. But people who were unable to be present when their children were born or when their parents were buried, they know and they are angry at what was happening in number 10 Downing Street while that was being done to them. And the other reason that won't wash, of course, is that many people have paid much greater consequences for their actions than this Prime Minister. In fact, I have a lot of people writing to me asking how come he's only had a 50 quid fine and others are being charged fines of up to £10,000 for breaches of the rules. And many people in public office have already lost their job because of their transgressions. And they are right to sit back and wonder, why should the holder of this one office be immune from that consequence? Madam Deputy Speaker, I think that also they suggest they didn't really know that the rules were being broken at the time. That really does beggar belief. We heard from the member for Wickham earlier, and we know that he and his colleagues inside the Conservative Parliamentary Party were waging a fierce and vicious argument about the consequences of these restrictions. The idea that people sitting in government offices drinking and socialising after hours didn't think that they were in breach of the rules they themselves were making is risible, and we should dismiss it. I think there's a simpler explanation for all of this. I genuinely believe that we have a Prime Minister whose conceit of himself is so great and whose sense of entitlement so profound that he genuinely did not think the rules applied to him. And that is why, when exposed, when found out at the end of last year, he did not come to this House and offer contrition. He did not come and say sorry. He came and he dissembled and he misled and he tried to do everything to cover up the breaches that had happened. And that, more than the attendance at a party, to my mind, is what he stands charged with today. It is not the fact, it is what he tried to do to conceal his actions. That, to my mind, is unforgivable. I'll happily take an intervention.
I really thank the honourable member for giving way, and he's making just such an excellent speech, and I agree with him on all accounts of what he's saying. Over 170,000 people have died from COVID in the United Kingdom. That means that has affected so many friends and so many families. There's been a devastating sense of remorse for people's loss. But if the Prime Minister was really showing his great remorse for breaking rules that he set, surely his actions would speak louder than his words, and that he would resign. Does he agree with me?
I could not agree more. I do think that he should have resigned if he had any integrity. And I think it is remarkable, really, that rather than get an apology and any demonstration of contrition when these events came to light, it wasn't until he was dragged kicking and screaming into the light of truth by the criminal justice system and the forces of law enforcement that we actually got the apology that we had this week, and it is not enough. Madam Deputy Speaker, I wanted to spend 1 minute just to talk about the situation in Scotland as well, because the member for Murray leads the Scottish Conservatives, and he and his colleagues at the start of this year in the Scottish Parliament took, I believe, the right decision. They called upon the Prime Minister to go. But somehow, miraculously now, they have been whipped into line by Central Office and changed their mind on that question. And I can do no better and comment on that than actually quote from Professor Adam Tompkins, until recently a Conservative member of the Scottish Parliament and a very senior Conservative. He says, "They have now reduced themselves and made their former position of principle look not only empty but risible, by insisting that the Prime Minister is now somehow fit for office and that being fined by the police makes no difference. The Scottish Conservatives are in terminal decline again, and this time it is their own fault." That from within the Conservative Party in Scotland itself. Now, I know many people throughout Britain will look with horror at the way in which this government has traduced public service and denigrated many of the democratic institutions in their country. But I tell you this, people in Scotland look at this too, and they see this as further evidence of a British state in decline and one that does not represent their interests, and they are increasingly attracted by the opportunity to create a new country, an independent country with a different constitution. So I will be supporting, in conclusion, I will be supporting this resolution today and voting for it, and I caution Conservative members to do so as well, because they are right. There is no room for personal attacks in this place or in politics. But understand this, actions do have consequences, and what goes round will come round. And if the Conservative Parliamentary Party tries to sweep this under the carpet, tries to acquiesce in the actions of this Prime Minister any further, then they will pay a very heavy political price for it.